vital to the survival of this species since it is such a very important nesting beach. Oh, and here is the marine biology station where we were staying at. So it's right on the beach at Playa Grande, and we could walk right out onto the beach and do all of our patrols and work that we were doing. So the biologists that work with them live here on the beach for the whole season. All right, a little more about Playa Grande. So it's a total of 3 miles. There was the bottom portion called Playa Grande, it's 2 miles. And then the upper portion is Playa Ventanas, and that is 1 mile long. There are a lot of tourists also on this beach as well because the surfing is very good. There is some dangerous currents, so the sign you see here is warning about dangerous currents on the beach right here. It does mention down here that it is National Park for leatherbacks, but there really isn't too much signage. This sign down here is talking about restricting pets on the beach, which we'll get into why a little bit later. The beach does close down at 5, but there were a couple occasions that we got some confused tourists wandering around on the beach with a bright flashlight, confused why they weren't allowed to be on the beach at night, but it's because the sea turtles are coming up at that time. They don't want anybody on the beach to bother the sea turtles, and it will open up back at dawn.
Yeah,
Menai is the Ministry of Atmosphere and Energy down there. They control the national park. And they also will control what research is allowed down there. So the Leatherback Trust has to fall back on what Menai allows them to do. For example, they only allow 3 scientists to be working on a turtle at the same time. They will also employ the tour guides that work down there. So the public can go down to Costa Rica. Any of us can go down there and pay to go on a leatherback tour. And it's actually a really great way to experience these animals, but you have to be dedicated because these tours, when I was there, we were working in the middle of the night. The people wanting to go on the tour will wait by the beach all night long, waiting for somebody to find a sea turtle, and then if they find a sea turtle, they all get to come out and see the sea turtle nesting. But it's very rewarding, and it's a really good educational experience for people to be able to see these turtles and then thus want to protect them. So we, as the Earthwatch volunteers with the Leatherback Trust, we work together with Menai volunteers that are patrolling the beach, as well as the tour guides that are patrolling the beach, and we would all kind of communicate with one another if we found a sea turtle down there. So I want to talk about why specifically these sea turtles are so endangered in this area. The big thing was poaching. So from 1970 to 1990, 90% of all sea turtle nests were poached. So that has created a huge gap in a population from that area that just doesn't exist because all of the babies were taken. The way it would work is the poachers would buy different plots of the beach for the night, and whatever sea turtles came up on their plot, they would get to do whatever they wanted with those eggs. So back then there were a lot of sea turtles. It might seem like it was kind of a lottery in whether you would get sea turtles, but back then there were quite a lot, so it was a good chance that they would have a sea turtle that they could poach the eggs from. And it was just a way of life down there. It's something that they eat for food. You can find sea turtle eggs for sale for food still in Costa Rica in areas where it's not close to Playa Grande, but they can get turtle eggs from other beaches. So getting the community involved in this is really important, and getting them aware that this does harm the population, because for the most part they don't really have any idea that it's hurting their population of sea turtles. Those markers exist at every 100 meters, and they're actually still there today. It helped us also know where we were on the beach, and we could mark our place based on those markers. So as you can imagine, taking all of these eggs really took a toll on the population. So here is a kind of very sad graph for you guys. You can see in the 1998 and 1999 season, there were 1,500 nesting females that year coming up on the beach. And these females were coming up every 10 days. So that adds up to about 10,000 nests. And the researchers told me that would mean that there's a nest about every 2 feet. And compared to the only 11 female sea turtles coming up the year I went, that is a huge difference in their numbers. So back in 1988 and 1989, that's when Dr. Palladino and Dr. Spotilla began their studies on leatherback biology in this area. And the way they did that was they went out there with the poachers and they just purchased their own plots of land. And instead of poaching the eggs, they were doing research on whatever turtle came up in their plot of land. So in 1991, Earthwatch began working with those researchers. And Earthwatch is an amazing institution because the way it works is anybody can pay to go on an Earthwatch expedition. And any of these Earthwatch expeditions will be associated with research going on all around the world. So these researchers are not only getting volunteer help by having people come out and see these animals and help them with their research, but they're also getting funding for their research. So it's really a dual benefit, and for the person going out, I can tell you it's just an amazing experience. It's worth every penny. So Earthwatch teamed up with them, and that's how they've been getting a lot of their help. And they really desperately need help to do all of the jobs that we were doing while I was down there. In the same year, the National Park was established by presidential decree. Unfortunately, it wasn't set into law, and there wasn't a lot of awareness, so people didn't really adhere to it back then. In 1992, they turned the poachers into tour guides. So those tours that I was talking about, all of those tour guides were once upon a time poachers. And you might want to get mad at these poachers and say that they shouldn't be doing this, but they didn't know. And I think turning them into tour guides was a really great way of keeping the community involved. Because if you were to implement this conservation and just tell all of these people you no longer have a job, the community is not going to be involved in it. So this was a really smart way to get people to keep continuing their jobs and for a good purpose. And it really gets the community involved and really caring about these sea turtles. And you could see in the community that they were very proud of these animals. So I think this was a really important step that they did it this way. They're now called buscadores, which is a finder or a seeker. So they walk around on the beach like we do, looking for sea turtles to bring their tours around to. And it's an education experience for everybody involved. It's really great. So in 1995, the park finally became national law. And that's really great because now the laws were starting to at least be followed. It's still a work in progress even today, but that was a really important step. In 2000, those original researchers started the Leatherback Trust.
Yeah, answer the question.
And then, as you can see, the population still continued to decrease as it's going down, so we have a huge decline.
How long?
And that's because all of those eggs from that period of time prior to this were all taken, so there were no adults to come up. And then you can see here at the very end, there were 26 females, and then it seems like there's a steep decline from the year before that I went, and then the year that I did go, from 26 nesting females to we only saw 11 coming up in the 2016-2017 season. And the reason they thought that was because it was an El Nino year, which caused a drought. And in El Nino, there is a lot more jellyfish, so the sea turtles were just being greedy and staying out in the ocean and eating for longer periods of time. So they expected once El Nino was over, they would see a bit of an uptick in this population. So this all sounds very bleak, but they do expect the numbers to increase since it's been about 20 to 30 years since all of this conservation has started. We're hoping that this graph will start trending upwards again because all of those turtles that were protected should about be at sexual maturity age now and should be coming up to nest soon, hopefully. So we're hoping to get some good news in the next few years on this.
So people give up. I can't do it.
So I'd like to talk a little bit about the Leatherback Trust and what they're doing down there. So, as I said, it was founded in 2000 by those original researchers that started in 1988 and 1989. When I was down there, they had 5 biologists, and they will have a field manager that's typically a grad student working down there.
It's like a name badge.
The biologists were all in different stages of their career. Some were just out of undergrad, some were currently grad students, and they will go down there for a season. They don't get paid, however, they do have a stipend for their food and their housing is paid for. So it's a really great way to gain experience for somebody looking to get a job in this field. And they're all really nice, and it was fun to kind of network with other people of a like mind as myself too. We did have 3 different jobs on the beach, and we would rotate through the different jobs every night. And there were different Earthwatch trips. So I was out there for 8 days. We were Earthwatch number 9, so there were 8 other trips prior to us, and then more trips following. Since I was in January, the season went until March. There were more Earthwatch trips after me. I was kind of in the prime season where I got to see adults and hatchlings. If you go really early in the season around November, you won't see any hatchlings because none of them have had 60 days to hatch yet. So you'll just see the females coming up to nest. Whereas if you're more at the end of the season, a lot of the females are done nesting, but you'll get lots of hatchlings and see everybody that was laid recently. So I went like right at the perfect time to see as much different stuff as I could. So that was really exciting.
Lights is bad. Too many lights.
So the mission of the Leatherback Trust is to engage the local communities in the conservation of these sea turtles, and also to halt development. So as I mentioned, Tamarindo is such a big, loud, really fun town, but there's a lot of light. It's like a shining beacon down at the bottom down there, and when you're walking on the beach, it's really the only light on the beach. And that bright light will deter the sea turtles from coming up to nest. So they've worked really hard to prevent any more development from being put around Playa Grande. There are currently some hotels down there, but they implemented a red light only policy around the beach. So when we were walking on the beach, we could not have any flashlights, as well as all of the houses and hotels on Playa Grande had to put red lights out on the outside of their house. So when we were going outside to put our shoes on and go on a patrol, all we had was red light. All of the curtains in the house had to be closed, so you could absolutely see nothing. So you're often putting on the wrong shoes and the wrong socks. You couldn't see anything at all. And as you walked down the beach, you would see all of the hotels only had red lights out. And sometimes we'd see someone that was kind of pushing it with a really bright red light, and we'd be like, hey there.
So it's very kind of sad.
So that was a really important thing that they did down on the beach. I remember one night we were out there, there was somebody that we could see way far off with a really bright like beacon of a light, and it seemed like we were really close, and the biologist I was with just took off running because she wanted to stop them because it's going to scare off any of the turtles. And we kept going and going trying to find this guy, and every time we got close he would disappear. It turns out that he was a security guard and somebody's house had just gotten robbed or something, and he was looking for him on the beach. So it was a little bit of an outstanding circumstance, but those white lights on the beach really do make a huge difference, so it's really important to have these red lights only. The other thing that they do is nest relocation. So sometimes a turtle will lay their nest on an area of the beach that is not very good for the hatchlings. They could get drowned by the waves if they're too low, or they might be too high and too dry. So if they were in an unfavorable spot, they would be moved to the hatchery by the marine biology station, where the researchers could keep an eye on them and then have them hatch from there. So they had a lot of success with the nest relocation. The last thing they do is a lot of data collection and research. So previously they had done tracking, which I showed you a little bit earlier. They've also done, when I was there, they were working on epibionts. And what this is animals that are living on the shells of the leatherbacks. So they often have a lot of barnacles on their backs. And what they're hoping to find through these barnacles, they'll just take them and they come off really easily, and they'll just scrape them off into a little collection cup. And what they're hoping to find is if there's a unique population of barnacles on them, it might give them an idea of where the sea turtles are going without having a tracking device on them. The other thing that they do a lot of work on is measuring nest temperature, because as we will see in a little bit, nest temperature plays a big role in sea turtle biology. So I'm going to talk about my favorite job first, which was night patrol. And this was where we would walk the beach at night looking for the nesting sea turtles. So I was really excited to be able to see one of these leatherbacks. I heard how amazing they were, so I always volunteered to go on this shift. But I was lucky enough that I was the first one put on night patrol on the very first night, and we got a leatherback sea turtle that night, so I was really excited about that. The way night patrol works is we wanted to walk 3 hours before and 3 hours after high tide. And while I was there, high tide was at like 2, 3 in the morning. So we were getting up at 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock, and then walking for 6 hours all in the middle of the night looking for sea turtles. And here on this picture over here, I've got it so you can see the different sections of the beach. Try and click the right button this time. So right here, this was North Playa Grande Beach. This was the best section for sea turtles to come up on. It's a nice wide beach where there's a lot of area for them to lay a good nest. And then down here on South Beach, It's a lot narrower, and so a lot of times they would lay the nest really close to the water where the eggs would actually drown. They need to kind of be in the perfect place where they're going to have some water but not be flooded, and then also not be too dry. And South Beach, there just wasn't a lot of place for that. The last beach we would go to, if we had enough people, which we often did not, was up here, which is Playa Ventanas. And there wasn't a lot of nesting activity that we saw up there, but that's probably because we didn't patrol there very often based on the numbers of people we had. We always wanted to have at least 2 of us walking each area at night. So we didn't always have enough people for that. So we used those markers that the poachers put down to know exactly where we were as we were walking, and that's how it denotes kind of the different sections on there. And a lot of times we would miss olive ridley sea turtles. The way this is set up, we would walk for 20 minutes from one of these arrows. So if I was on North Beach, we would start here, which is at the Marine Biology Station, walk and take 20 minutes to walk here, and then we would sit down here and take a break and talk for 20 minutes, and then we would walk back up for 20 minutes and then sit for another 20 minutes. And with this arrangement, they were hoping that we should be able to catch any nesting sea turtle coming up, because leatherbacks can take a really long time to nest. It can take them up to an hour. So with this arrangement, we should be able to see everybody. But as I said, we didn't really see many olive ridley nests because they nest a lot quicker. They're very small and spry, and they kind of run up on the beach, lay a haphazard nest, and then run back out and leave. Versus if you're a huge leatherback, it takes a lot of effort and time to lay a nest. So I did get to see one olive ridley right as she was going back into the water, but I didn't see any of them nesting. If we missed a sea turtle, we would still mark their tracks. So it's easy to tell if a sea turtle came up because they're dragging their bodies in the sand. You would see their flipper marks in the sand. So we would mark where that was. It would give the researchers an idea of where the nest was, but there is no way they could find that nest to do any research after it's already been hidden. But if they find eggs somewhere in that area later, then they'll know, oh, maybe it's from this one that we marked down. If we did find a turtle, we would work that turtle and count all of its eggs. And we would have to kind of swap off with people because we wouldn't want to stop our patrol for too long, because while we're working one turtle, another turtle might come up. So we had to kind of work together with the other groups to modify the patrol in that way. Now keep in mind, this was in the middle of the night with no light, and when I was there, it was a new moon, so there was literally no light. So it took a lot of getting used to. I tripped on a lot of driftwood at the beginning, and I felt like the biologists had some sort of cat eyes because they could see almost everything out there. But it was a really beautiful experience because we were walking out there to see this dinosaur, basically, and because you're in a place with no lights, you could see every star in the universe. We talked about the Milky Way many times, and we talked about all of the constellations, but yeah, the Milky Way was like streaming over the sky. It was so beautiful. So not only are you in this beautiful location, but you get to see these amazing turtles. It's really neat. All right, so what happens if you found a turtle? It takes them about 10 minutes to haul their large bodies up on the beach. Everybody's a little bit different, so this is kind of just an estimation. Once they find their spot on the beach where it's not too high up in the vegetation, you can see up here that there's a lot of vegetation. That would not be an ideal spot for a nest. Where this turtle is pretty much perfect. Again, you wouldn't want to be too low where the nest can get flooded, so they have to be kind of right in the middle area. So once they find that spot, they're going to start using their huge flippers and digging a body pit. And this just kind of lowers their body down into the sand. You can kind of see that the sand is all stirred up around this one here. So that one is currently digging a body pit. Once their body pit was done, they would start digging their egg chamber. Now these guys, because they have such huge fins, they dig really deep egg chambers, about 75 centimeters deep, which is about 30 inches. And that takes them about 10 to 15 minutes. They'll use their little flippers kind of like scoops, and it almost turns into a little hand, and they're scooping the sand out and throwing it and scooping it and throwing it. So it was kind of cool to see. Once they've dug their egg chamber, at the very bottom, they're like reaching with all of their might to get up as much as they can, and they're almost getting nothing. So eventually they'll give up on that because they're getting nothing out, and they'll start laying their eggs, which takes them about 10 minutes. After that, they will bury their eggs. They'll start scooping sand back into the hole, and then they stand on it and press it down. I heard it's really cute when olive ridleys do this because they kind of do a little like back and forth dance on top of their nest, and the researchers kept talking about how cute it was, but unfortunately I never got to see it. Once it's nice and buried and patted down, they will start to camouflage their nest. And this will take anywhere from 10 minutes if someone's being real lazy to about an hour. And they just kind of crawl all over the beach digging fake body pits and throwing sand literally everywhere. It's like crazy because they have these huge front flippers. They can fling sand really far. And by doing this, they're digging all these extra body pits so predators can't tell where the nest was. And there's no way that we could ever find that nest either. And actually, I think that's what this one is doing. This picture is starting to camouflage. So she's digging kind of a fake body pit right now. After that, they'll return back into the ocean, and that takes them about 5 to 10 minutes. And it's really rewarding after all of their hard work where they're like blushing and grunting and panting because they're so tired. When they finally hit the